And I guess it's an interesting thing because people, I think, tend to overlook the fact that Microsoft is one of the largest contributors to the Linux kernel, one of the largest users of Linux in the estate. So many people might not know Microsoft have got their own dedicated Linux OS that they use as part of Azure. So there's a whole bunch of use that goes in there, and they have worked really hard, I think, to be able to give back to the OSS community, right? So a lot of what they do is in-house, obviously, but they do give back quite a lot on that. And I think Linux OS Guard is one of those things. And at its core, it's about verified trust at the OS and container level. So it's a bit like a tamper-proof sort of vault around your system where, you know, the /user partition is sort of immutable. It's mounted with a signed root hash. And if there's any change, then the kernel goes, no, thank you very much, and rejects it. And it sort of feels very similar to Secure Boot, right? In the way that it's doing it. But I think this adds the ability for it to be more dynamic. And what was I going to say? Uses VTPM. Sorry, that's where I was going. So it uses trusted launch with VTPM to underpin that. So it's still using sort of, you've got to turn Secure Boot on in the OS, whereas historically you potentially turn it off. And you know, the super important because having that level of security, and I've seen that. I think you can turn Secure Boot on, right? And I think there are different sort of instantiations depending on the flavor of Linux that you have. And I think being able to have this that could potentially be applied to anything, right, is a super useful thing. And as I said, you know, Linux, I think was the last number I read, sort of about 80 of Microsoft's own AKS workloads are run on Linux, which is substantial, right? And given the intense focus on security, you can see why they're pushing that. And, you know, we know this is important because we want to be able to block things like rootkits. We want to be able to block things like runtime tampering. We want to stop things like it's called container escapes. We want to ensure that only trusted code can execute, right? So very similar to Windows and Secure Boot.